Welcome to this short video looking at how we can see what chemicals are in a mixture. So of course this video will look at how we can use chromatography to go and work this out. So let's have a quick look at some of the equipment we can use. So we'll use some filter paper. So the filter paper is used to put the dots of ink on and allows the solvent to move up it. You'll use a ruler to go and measure the distances that the different inks have moved and the distance that the solvent front has moved, and to make it more precise you'll measure this in millimeters. The solvent is the liquid that moves up the chromatography paper during the mobile phase. So it is the solvent that goes and separates out the individual inks in a mixture of different inks. We use a pencil to draw a line where the ink are starting and show where the solvent front is. We use a pencil because it is not affected by the solvent, and if we use a pen would go and affect the results. We use a range of known ink samples and our unknown ink sample in order to go and compare them to each other. So when thinking about practicals, there are several keywords that we need to remember. So a control variable is any variable which does not change during the experiment. The dependent variable is the variable that we're going to measure a response to the independent variable. A hypothesis is a prediction on whether the independent variable will have an effect on the dependent variable. An independent variable is a variable that we are changing. An anomaly is a result that does not fit the pattern. A correlation is the relationship between two variables. An error is a measure of the difference between the measured and the calculated value and the true value. And precision and accuracy are often used interchangeably, but in science they have different meanings. So measurements that are close to the known value are said to be accurate, whereas measurements that are close to each other are said to be precise. Now that we've had a look at different variables and things, we can go and look at how we carry out the investigation. So remember, when you're putting a method together, it needs to be detailed. So if we look at how we can investigate what mixture of colours are used to make up an ink using chromatography, we need to go and use some of the equipment shown below. So you would have some sort of beaker or container containing solvent with a piece of chromatography paper in, and you would need to use some known colourings and your sample, as well as a pencil to draw the lines on to show where the starting point is in the solvent front, as an ink pen would go and also interfere with the results because the solvent would move it. So if we look at the method, you start off by drawing a pencil line across the bottom of the chromatography paper about 1 to 2 centimeters from the bottom. You then use a pipette or a capillary tube to add small spots of each ink to the line on the paper, including the unknown ink. Then place the paper into a container with a suitable solvent at the bottom. Then allow the solvent to move through the paper, making sure that you remove the chromatogram or the paper before it reaches the top. You then allow the chromatogram to dry and then measure the distance that each spot has travelled and the solvent has travelled, as you can then go and work out RF values. So now that we've looked at how to carry out the investigation, there are just a few last things to think about. So there are a few questions that you should ask yourself when completing your method. So, what thing should you do first? Is there something confusing you? And if there is, where could you look for some help? Could you explain your method to somebody else? So does it make sense? Could you have used more scientific terms within your method? And if you need help, do you know where to look for it? Have you double checked what you need to include? And have you had a think through how you could possibly make your method better? Right, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I hope this has been helpful.